We've done a lot of fascinating stories at the Maine Wire, but I have to say this story about Abdullahi Ali, the wannabe Somali warlord who was billing Mainecare $5 million a year at the same time he was raising money to buy arms, munitions, and fund a paramilitary group in Jubaland, Somalia. It's got to be one of my favorites. I know it's a complicated story, so we're going to try to explain it a little bit here. So first, Abdullahi Ali, who is he? In 2009, Abdullahi Ali came to America, came to Maine as a Somali refugee. Over the course of the next few years, he would cut a path for himself as the poster child for Somalis in Maine. He was the ultimate refugee, a success story. He was getting himself educated, he was starting businesses, he was starting nonprofits, and he was making connections to the Democratic Party. According to records obtained by the Maine Wire, Abdullahi Ali was the CEO of Gateway Community Services LLC, and he was the head of Gateway Community Services Maine, the latter of those being a nonprofit that has received grants and various contracts from the state of Maine. Under the banner of the LLC, Abdullahi Ali provided services that were reimbursed by Mainecare. According to the documents we received, Abdullahi didn't always bill properly when he was submitting claims for reimbursement to Mainecare. The way Mainecare works, an organization submits a claim for reimbursement, they get it automatically, then looking back, there's an audit to see if they followed the rules. That wasn't the case with Gateway Community Services LLC. An audit of transactions conducted in 2015 and 2017 found that the Gateway Community Services LLC had an overbilling rate or an error rate or a fraud rate, depending on how you look at it, of about 35%. Extrapolated over all of their billing for that period of time, it worked out to about $900,000. But apparently here in the state of Maine, if you overbill a government program, they're just going to duke you 5%. Try getting that with the IRS. So the debt was reduced to about $700,000, $800,000. This is the money that Gateway Community Services, the business run by Abdullahi Ali, a Somali American refugee who at this point had citizenship status, this is the amount of money that he owed Maine taxpayers. He owed Maine taxpayers $800,000 as of the findings of the 2019 audit. According to a second letter that the Maine Wire obtained in 2022, that debt hadn't been paid. For some reason, the state of Maine decided that we could just float Gateway Community Services a no-interest loan of $800,000 and not recover that money, not recoup that money. In that same year, Gateway Community Services, according to financial disclosures filed by Representative Decca DeLocke of South Portland, was Decca DeLocke's employer. She's a well-connected Democrat representative, also a Somali refugee, happens to sit now on the legislature's powerful Appropriations Committee. So here you have two powerful, well-connected Somali American refugees at the center of politics in the Maine Democratic Party who are running a migrant services LLC that bills Mainecare $5 million a year, for some reason is allowed to float this $800,000 debt, and we have no evidence that that debt has actually been paid back. If it has, it was likely paid back through what are known as set-asides. This is a sweetheart deal that the Department of Health and Human Services gives some Mainecare billers, according to a process that's a little mysterious, where they are allowed to deduct their payments towards these kinds of debts against billing submitted to Mainecare. So to rephrase that, if you're caught overbilling Mainecare, in some cases, the state of Maine will allow you to pay back that debt by deducting 10% from future bills you submit to Mainecare. You see the problem there? Do you think any average American would be allowed to float an $800,000 debt with the IRS? If you underpaid your taxes by $800,000 as a business owner, do you think that the Maine Revenue Services or the Internal Revenue Services would be okay just floating a no-interest loan to you while you got your affairs in order to pay it back? I don't think so, but here's where the story gets a little bit more interesting. During this period of time in 2024, when Abdullahi Ali and Gateway Community Services and Decca DeLocke were billing Mainecare for an average of $5 million a year for migrant services, which is itself an ambiguous category of services, which as far as we can discern, is fake translation services that never happen, but the state still pays for them anyways. At the same time all of this is happening, Abdullahi Ali is in Kenya doing media interviews with Kenyan media outlets, bragging about the fact that when he was in the United States, he was helping to facilitate the financing of arms deals in southern Somalia. He was running at the time to be president of the southern state of Somalia, Jubaland. The incumbent candidate there had recently rewritten the constitution, decided to run for another term. Abdullahi Ali still ran anyways. There was one election and then another election. The incumbent ended up winning. The federal government came in and said, well, we don't recognize any of this. It's kind of a confusing situation over there in Somalia, if you haven't guessed already. Abdullahi Ali disputed the results of the election. As far as we can tell, he's still in Kenya with his family and children and hasn't returned to Maine very recently. However, the question remains, why on earth are Maine taxpayers paying $5 million into a migrant services business that has, one, a documented history of overbilling the program by 35%? Why are we doing that? Why are they allowed to continue billing Medicaid while they have not paid back this debt? Two, why did Abdullahi hire Representative Decca Delac? Why hire a politically connected Democrat to an organization like this? Was it tied to the sweetheart deal that he got from Medicaid? Those are questions that I think need to be answered. But the biggest question of all is, were Maine taxpayer dollars used to finance arms in Jubaland? It's a question I never in my life thought that I would have to be asking as a journalist working in Maine. Trust me, I'd rather be covering the Red Hot Dog Festival in Dexter or, baked bean suppers. But it's a legitimate question now. It's a question that I'm guessing the federal authorities are looking into at the moment. But it's a question that all Mainers should be asking, especially when you consider that we were told just a few weeks ago the most pressing issue in the state of Maine was bailing out Mainecare. Got to bail out Mainecare. The hospitals aren't going to be paid. $120 million short. We've got to do this. Kids are going to die. Babies are going to die. Everybody's going to die if we don't bail out Mainecare for $120 million. But nobody asked, why are we $120 million short? Why did the previous legislature fail to properly forecast how much Mainecare was going to cost during this period of time? Nobody asked that question. We have no answers to that question. It's just magically we're $120 million over budget. But I wonder, how many other gateway community solutions are there? How much other fraud is there in the Mainecare program? And why do Maine Democrats seem intent on refusing any conversation about fraud, waste, and abuse within the Mainecare program? If it's so important, you would think that they'd want to eliminate all waste, fraud, and abuse so that the program can actually help marginalized communities, babies, poor people. That's what they would be doing if they actually cared. However, if Mainecare had become Maine's version of the USAID program, where money was taken from hardworking taxpayers and funneled into pet projects for Democrats, well, they'd be doing basically what they're doing right now, which is turning a blind eye to waste, fraud, and abuse in the Mainecare program, including money going to Somali arms deals. Let's be real here.